And we're live, Robert. Thank you all for joining us for this third episode of the Finance Magnates podcast. And today we're going to talk to Robert, who is a blockchain expert. Robert, can you please introduce yourself?
Sure, yeah. My name is Robert Viglione, and I'm a co-founder and part of the core team for ZenCash, which is a new privacy-centric cryptocurrency. And I'm also a PhD candidate in finance, so it's kind of fun being on this Finance Magnates, podcast. And what I'm doing with my PhD is I'm actually focusing on crypto finance. So I'm doing research in exactly this field, looking at a bunch of interesting things. A lot of that with Bitcoin, obviously, since we have most financial data there. And I also teach Bitcoin and blockchain applications in finance at the university, and just been part of a variety of other cryptocurrency projects, including being part of the core team for Z Classic, which was just a simple clone of ZCash, bringing ZK snarks to the masses. And I've worked on, BlockPay, which is a merchant services app. I was part of their US and Canada team heading that up. And I've done some consulting work with Bitgate, which was a Norwegian exchange. So yeah, I've been all over the space. I've written for CoinDesk and Bitcoin.com as well.
So very well qualified to talk about the subject, which is great. So tell me, how's the reception in academia right now for cryptocurrency?
That's a great question. I have to say, when I first started in academia, I was somewhat laughed at for talking about Bitcoin so much. And it's gone from just kind of mild amusement in academia to, hey, can you teach a course and this stuff right now, because we think it's so important that students need to be now I have faculty looking to do research in the area. I have just continued requests to do seminars to different students and teach courses on this stuff. So it's been great.
And what about demand from students? Is that like, do younger people are more attracted to it than the established academia?
Hold on 1 second. Sorry about that. These headphones are sometimes giving me issues. So what was the question?
I asked if what about the students themselves? If there's demand from the ground up.
Absolutely. In fact, that's been some of the most fun I've had. Is so actually, in addition to teaching a course at the university, I've launched the university's Bitcoin club, or crypto club as we call it, and we've just had so much interest from the student body. So the course that I taught kind of kicked that off a little bit, where it started getting attention amongst the students, and the students themselves were just extremely motivated and excited for the stuff. And so it went from there to this crypto club, and it's just kind of expanded out into the university. And it's just been great. What I tell people is, I think that the next generation of people will understand cryptocurrencies much better than the current ones, and certainly older generations today, because they just grow up in this whole peer-to-peer kind of BitTorrent world, and it just makes sense to them completely.
Yeah. I also saw that you're taking part in helping the Seasteading organization with their blockchain initiative.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you can talk about that, because I think it's linked like on the ideological level at least.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for bringing that up. I forgot to mention it, but Seasteading is an awesome initiative. It's a Peter Thiel-backed venture. It was co-founded by Peter Thiel and Patry Friedman, Milton Friedman's grandson. And the philosophy behind it is really that society needs more experimentation in social technologies such as governance, and how we we consider relationships, like governing relationships amongst people. So their idea was, let's start just going offshore and trying things, like rather than try to put in massive effort to try to change things in the typical political domain, which is very difficult, right? Individual effort has a marginal effect in politics of close to zero. But when you could just start fresh, you can start experimenting with all sorts of ideas, like free societies, free city projects, and we're seeing these things blossom around the world. And Seasteading caught my attention years ago, and I joined the project actually as an ambassador. But now that we actually have some traction with the government of French Polynesia, we're actually doing our first seastead in a lagoon in Tahiti. So it's just a beautiful paradise environment to be doing this kind of experimentation, and getting more involved with that project. I've joined their blockchain working group, and I actually just gave a talk on blockchain technology and how I think it could benefit seasteading when I was just last in Tahiti last month. So it's, if your viewers haven't heard of seasteading, I think everyone should, because a lot of people don't realize how far down that path we are. We actually have an agreement with the government now to do it, and we're going to be launching starting construction in 2018, and hopefully have our first project operational in 2020. So, the stuff it's very real. There's a lot of interesting people behind it, and a lot of really smart people, and a good amount of capital behind it too. So it's going to happen. It's just, a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah. So you think that, let's say, Bitcoin, more generally, blockchain technology or blockchain currencies can be the basis of this new form of government?
Definitely. I think, so whether it's currency, I think currency makes sense as well. But so the project is looking across the entire blockchain spectrum, everything from potential fundraising, you doing sort of like title registration on a blockchain, down to peer-to-peer asset exchange on blockchains, and then currency on blockchain. So it's kind of it's kind of like a full stack of fintech that could be applied, and they're interested in. And what I think is great about seasteading is when you think about how to structure a society from the ground up, you probably wouldn't take any country's government out there and say, this is exactly what we would do if we were starting from scratch. But when you do start from scratch, you can start thinking about things more logically and think about what makes sense, what's just legacy, in this governing structure that maybe doesn't make sense anymore. And integrating cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology just makes a lot of sense from a lot of different levels, especially when you're doing something that has this broad international focus.
Do you think there's any chance we're going to see an ICO, an initial coin offering for a country next?
I think there's a very strong chance of that, yes.
Yeah, because it's getting very heated. I don't know if you saw the status IM $270 million ICO. So definitely, I can imagine somebody trying to raise funds to some pirate nation or something like that.
Yeah, no, I definitely think we'll see something like that.
I mean, back when I was an economics student, we would have definitely wanted to see, new countries emerging, with new currencies, just so we can, have a lab to test. You say, okay, right. You can't really test these things in reality because, economics, you have to deal with the countries that you have and the economies you have. But here you have a chance of just setting up completely new, city-states or countries, if you want to look at them like that, operating on an entirely new model, and people can, use their Ether or Bitcoin or whatever to bring them into existence.
That's exactly how I see it too. And the thing is, so as an economist, I think that we should all want to see more experimentation. No matter what your political beliefs are. And I define myself mainly as politically agnostic, because I think that people have far too strong beliefs that really aren't substantiated with evidence. And we all have this kind of information processing bias. So we digest information that confirms our biases, right? What we want to hear oftentimes, and everyone kind of is susceptible to these cognitive biases. So I think that what we want to see in society, no matter what, is just more experimentation, things that we can learn from. So, and this is exactly what we're seeing in this kind of Cambrian explosion in the blockchain domain. It's somewhat like a permissionless innovation environment where, unfortunately, especially you see this in ICOs now, with just massive amounts of capital that are being raised for ideas and firms that are, in traditional fundraising would not get more than a few $100,000 or raising hundreds of millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars. And it's probably somewhat absurd. And you're going to see a lot of probably shakeout at some point, like a lot of overvaluations that just aren't substantiated with the real level of effort or utility.
Yeah, definitely. No, I just before we went on Ethereum ecosystem, if somebody's gonna, hopefully it's not gonna happen, but if there's gonna be another hack or or just fraud, with somebody running off with $270 million, is there going to be calls again for for another hard fork like happened after the DAO? Like, but I mean, experimentation is good, from a academic point of view. Like, I want to see what will happen, but for the system, I'm not sure, what that type of shock will do. I mean, definitely in the long term, it will make it stronger, but short term, I'm not sure how it will react.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And it's unfortunate there's just so much information asymmetry in this environment where you're going to have people with that. And even if they're not trying to scam you, you could have people that are just, we're inherently more optimistic about our own abilities and our own projects, right? So you could go to the market with the best of intentions, raise a few tens of millions of dollars, and the market crashes or your opportunity just doesn't mature in the way that you expect. Right, and there's going to be so many people that lose money because of this, and that's just really unfortunate. So I agree with you. When I talk about experimentation, I would rather see much lower level of experimentation and not so much capital flowing into the space kind of blindly.
Yeah,
right. There's this, yeah.
So as a
kind of.
So as a finance lecturer, right? What type of advice you're giving your students right now if they're coming, through the club or in your class and they're asking, portfolio, like I made a ton of money on Ether, I don't have time to read all of these things and decide what's good. How do I diversify in a way that protects my investment?
Right. Yeah. No, that's a question I get fairly often is, or even just the simple question of what do I buy now? Like what do you recommend I invest in? And, the number one thing is I recommend everyone be extremely cautious. We're probably in somewhat, whether the environment we're seeing now is kind of like a local maximum that, we see some correction and then it skyrockets up, or whether this is just truly a bubble environment, it's tough to say. And I'm not like a strict adherent to efficient markets theories or anything like that. But I do think that there's some informational content in prices, and maybe prices these days, maybe they're signaling that there's so much amazing stuff ahead of us, or we have kind of like an echo effect of cognitive biases that are pushing prices too high. So the first thing that I tell people, and this is advice that I wish I took more of myself, is if you don't have some asymmetric advantage in information about a particular project, you probably just want to diversify across, some broad spectrum of projects, right? So the first thing you should do is probably take some sort of portfolio approach to your investing strategy, where you're kind of weighting your portfolio across the top 10 or 20 cryptocurrencies, and you're weighting with some rational mechanisms such as like market cap weighting, which for cryptocurrencies I don't think is the best approach. I think the best approach is maybe take like a liquidity weighting, like some sort of 3-month moving average on volume or something like that. And the reason I say that is because with cryptocurrencies, it's way too easy for prices to be manipulated. So if you're just blindly or mechanically going into market cap, you could be including a lot of junk into your portfolio, or just having irrational weights for it.
Yeah, I think that's that's the rational approach, which maybe some people are missing right now because of all the let's say irrational exuberance of just seeing everything blowing up and thinking, okay, how do I get on the next train?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So how does ZenCash fits into this ecosystem?
Yeah, so ZenCash, we're trying to, I guess the cleanest way to describe what we're trying to do is we're trying to dashify Zcash.
Okay.
So yeah, what I mean by that is, for those that are familiar with Dash and Zcash, Zcash has, I think, the state-of-the-art privacy technology out there. There's a variety of different solutions to privacy enhancements over Bitcoin. And I think Zcash, using zero-knowledge proofs, offers the best solution on the market. So we essentially took that, like the SnarkLib library and ZK Snark functionality, and we're trying to build more of a Dash-like system where we have decentralized governance. We have a sustainable community funding model, so we can actually kind of have our own internal growth capital instead of looking for people to just donate their time or effort or resources to the project. We think that when people work, they should be paid. And we're really just trying to push the state of the art with the technology in terms of both the privacy technology and the social governance technology. So it's somewhat related to what we're doing with Seasteading, is where Seasteading is trying to innovate with social technologies and governance in kind of like the real physical world. And we're trying to push the state of the art in the digital world with these kind of collaborative distributed software projects. So it's kind of fun working on them both concurrently.
So I'll try, because most of our readers come from the world of finance, not necessarily technology. So I'll try to summarize it. You're trying to create a currency which is both, the most, private, or the most privacy preserving currency, with the latest technology, while still being governable. Is that a correct way to summarize it?
Yeah, I think that's a very fair summary of what we're trying to do. And then there's obviously a lot more devil in the details when you dig into, for instance, our white paper and the particular architecture that we're pushing. But I think that's a really good high-level characterization.
Great. I also saw there's an emphasis on communication, right? Censorship-free communication, or unstoppable communication, if you can expand on that.
Correct. Yeah. So we're really, when we're thinking about the architecture for the project, we're thinking about it from the perspective of someone who lives in a hostile regulatory environment. Say you're in Venezuela, and your government is openly hostile to Bitcoin, for instance, or cryptocurrencies in general. We don't want our users to ever personally get into trouble by using our services. So fundamentally, we think that starts with end-to-end encryption, abilities to join the network without giving away the fact that you are joining the network, right? And then obfuscating your wealth, essentially, where if you live in a hostile environment, we think that you have a fundamental human right to privacy. So as we're designing this, we're thinking, we have all of these cool ideas for where we think cryptocurrencies and its technology should go to be useful to end users. But we're starting with the premise that if that's even going to be possible on a global scale, you have to start with an extremely secure system so that anyone could use it without any fear of reprisal for doing so. And once you satisfy that fundamental security perspective or security layer, then you can start doing all this other cool stuff on top of it to make it more useful.
Just so people that are not up to date on the latest news should know that in Venezuela right now, there's exchanges are reporting a massive tick in the demand for Bitcoin because of confiscations of wealth by the government there. So how would you make joining the system an anonymous or at least a private affair, so it cannot be tracked.
Yeah, so part of our architecture, besides just the end-to-end encrypted system, is we actually have, we're designing in an ability for people to join the network through like commercial domains that aren't related to the network. They just look like normal friendly domains, so people can join through those and kind of do a hop into our network. So it preserves their privacy in even participating in the network, which I think is really important.
Mm-hmm. And generally speaking, let's say, okay, Venezuela right now gives us a test case, but beyond that, do you think that like how likely are we to see in the next couple of years cryptocurrencies being accepted as an actual let's go to a wealth preservation technique or a money transmitting technique, or and not as a a speculating instrument as it seems right now?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So there's a variety of use cases for cryptocurrencies, and clearly you just nailed the fundamental use case, which I look at in some of my academic research is this preservation of value concept. And I think that, for all of the talk, and even Satoshi's first paper, the founder of Bitcoin, he talked about a peer-to-peer payment system, right? So that's one use case, obviously, that was designed in from the very start. But I think that what's subsumed that, and particularly for Bitcoin, is the use case for preservation of value, in particular for people that live in volatile economies, right? And I think that that's an extremely valid and an extremely important use case for the technology. And even if it doesn't expand anything beyond that, I still think that that adds a tremendous amount of value to humanity. And going beyond that, into the peer-to-peer payment system, it depends what part of the world you live in. Like if you live in the U.S. or say the Nordic countries, I think the banking system in the Nordic countries dominates, in terms of efficiency, the U.S. So let's start there. The banking system is so efficient in the Nordic countries where I don't see much marginal benefit to using cryptocurrencies as a form of payment. It's just not adding much more to the system that already functions extremely well. But if you're in, say some other underdeveloped country, say in Africa, or you can go back to the Venezuela example, where maybe the system's breaking down somewhat, or maybe you have this layer of, we call them like the unbanked, and it's kind of, we don't know exactly how many people are unbanked. We could say maybe underbanked, but these people are really disenfranchised from this, a normally functioning financial system. So in that market, cryptocurrencies could dominate and have a hugely valuable use case that maybe in the Western world we don't necessarily appreciate. So I'm hopeful we'll see something like that. And I think these technologies, the adoption path is not linear. Like our brains are trained to think linearly. So a skeptical person might say it could take 10 to 20 years for this to be mass adopted. I don't think so. I think maybe you're looking at 2 to 5 years before the technology you see just kind of, a rural villager in, say, like Zambia has his smartphone or his cell phone, and he's transacting in a stable cryptocurrency. And stable cryptocurrency might be an oxymoron to some people, but it's very easy to create a stable cryptocurrency. For instance, we have on the BitShares platform, we have like BitUSD or BitEuro. These are just market pegged assets to the exchange rate and smart contracts that mimic their synthetic products to like stable currencies.
But currently, it's unlikely to happen because just of the. I mean, with Bitcoin, it's unlikely to happen because of the high fees. It's actually costing you like over $5 to make a transfer. And I think especially if you're a villager in Africa, if you want to buy some a bag of grain and you can get it with a SMS message, right? With M-Pesa, it's more it's more affordable. right? Right now, when people ask me what's the use cases that I see at the moment for Bitcoin, I say it's to pay off ransomware and to smuggle money out of China. Those are the two use cases at the moment. So hopefully there's going to be new advances like ZenCash is going to make it more usable on a daily basis.
Yeah, and that's our goal. I think, especially when in a ZenCash, this is one feature I'd like to do, but create these kind of market pegged assets as well, where, okay, sending an SMS message that trades cell phone minutes is cool. It works right now for M-Pesa. But we could do that maybe with even more assurance rather than trading cell phone minutes. Hey, you could have like a BitUSD kind of thing trading in like a secure fashion over the ZenCash network. And something like that might add a better use case to people out there that, yeah, they have a decent solution right now, trading cell phone minutes. Cell phone minutes have value. It's kind of like a commodity. But you could move more into the currency domain with maybe longer term storage value if you kind of add that to a blockchain, and a blockchain that it is secure, where you know that it's not going anywhere, it's cryptographically protected, right? And you're integrated into a global network instead of just having like, and I mean, M-Pesa is regional, right? So you could trade those minutes, but I'm not even sure how it works across countries. Whereas if you have like a BitUSD trading on Zen, it'll be globally applicable, so it can move with you anywhere you go.
Yeah, but the question is if eventually we'll see those systems just adopting blockchain, as their underlying infrastructure without the client knowing about it, or is it going to be like an actual cryptocurrency, with an actual name, that people will know?
Yeah, I think you just nailed it. I think in order for all this technology to go mainstream, people need to just not even know that they're using it. It has to be done in the background, and you should not have to. I mean, there's been so many conversations in my life I've had with people trying to explain Bitcoin to them. There's no reason to explain what a miner is or what asymmetric cryptography is or anything like that for people to be able to use something, make it useful to people. And there's no way that my mother is going to start using a payment system where she needs to know what a miner is. So yes, I'm also a believer that we don't need to reinvent the wheel every time we try to do something useful. So sure, you could see M-Pesa or any of these other payment providers just adopting blockchain in the background. They can plug into the Ethereum network or blockchain network or Bitcoin network and be running their system completely without their users understanding how it works. And I think that that's the better case for how this will go mainstream than convincing most of humanity, hey, your government's money is junk. Jump over to this other brand new stuff we invented in 2009. There's no way you're convincing the average person that that's the way to go.
Yeah, that's definitely how it appears. At least I would say in the normal world. Not inside the crypto bubble, right? People are saying, no, this is the end of the US dollar is over. Soon everybody's going to have just a Bitcoin, and they don't even stop to realize that many people don't even know how to operate a smartphone, in our world.
Yeah.
And trying to explain to them that there's this internet magic money stored on, it's probably not going to work for everybody.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we're we had a good conversation. We learned a lot, and we're nearing the half-hour mark. So, what else would you want to share with our audience?
Yeah, I guess the one question I had for you was, and I think this is important for me, is so what are your listeners, your readers, what do they want out of cryptocurrencies? What are the things that they love about cryptocurrencies? What are the things they hate? What do they think, what kind of direction do they think that this entire industry should move? Because I think that's really useful feedback for guys like me.
Well, to be honest, what most people want is the prices to rise. They don't care about the implementation. It's sad to say, but that's the way it seems. No, but definitely, I would say right now, what everybody's complaining about is just backlogs. People can't get their their transmission to execute, and I think it could be because right now, because of all the major ICOs, that's most of the complaints that I'm getting. But people are complaining like, oh, I made the transaction, it didn't go well, it didn't go through, and they're mad, they're thinking their wallet is a scam, or maybe something else is a scam. And you tell them, okay, you can look at the the Ethereum blockchain explorer and see that, there's like 15,000 other transactions right now waiting. It's not, just the network is not fast enough. And I think if somebody can can figure that out, either with Lightning networks or whatever, just make it instant. That's what people are asking at the moment.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. No, that's really good feedback. And I do think that things are kind of annoying right now with this backlog. But these are technical problems that, just remember the industry started in 2009. So we'll figure it out for sure. I think that these are definitely it's not rocket science. So it's just a matter of the right mix of consensus and governance and technology.
Definitely. Okay, so thank you very much, Robert, for taking the time and answering my questions. And I'm hoping we'll have you on in the future to talk about ZenCash or other subjects, because you're definitely I know not to call you a professor because you're still a PhD candidate, but you're definitely an expert. Okay.
Appreciate that. I would love to come back.
Thank you, Robert.
Alrighty.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Take care. So thank you all for watching, and please subscribe for more talks in the blockchain cryptocurrency area. Thank you.